You wake up and the world is already speaking to you. Before your feet touch the floor, voices have begun their sermon. Some are loud, some are subtle. Some are comforting lies, and some are crushing accusations. The question is not whether you will listen to a voice today, but which one you will obey. And so you must learn to speak to yourself before the world does. You must take hold of your own soul and preach to it truths that do not bend with your emotions. Truths that do not shift with your circumstances. Truths that remain when everything else collapses. Tell yourself first that God is not impressed with you, but He is infinitely worthy of your awe. This will offend your pride, but it will save your soul. You were not created to be the center of the universe. And the sooner you accept that, the freer you will become. The great tragedy of modern life is not that people think too little of themselves, but that they think too much of themselves and too little of God. When you rise in the morning, remind yourself that the universe does not orbit around your desires, your plans, or your comfort. God is holy. He is weighty. He is altogether other. He does not exist to endorse your dreams. You exist to glorify Him. And this truth, though it humbles you, will anchor you. Because when your life is about Him and not you, then even suffering gains meaning, obedience gains clarity, and joy gains depth. You must tell yourself this every day, because your heart is a factory of idols, and if you do not tear them down, they will rule you. Tell yourself that you are far more sinful than you want to admit, and far more dependent than you feel comfortable confessing. Do not flatter yourself. Do not excuse yourself. Do not compare yourself to others and call that righteousness. Look honestly at your heart. Look at the pride that masquerades as confidence, the selfishness that dresses itself as self-care, the impatience you excuse because you think you deserve better. You are not basically good with a few flaws. You are desperately in need of mercy. And this is not a message meant to crush you, but to free you from pretending. When you stop defending yourself, you can start repenting. When you stop justifying yourself, you can start depending on grace. Tell yourself this every day, because if you forget it, you will become harsh with others, shallow in prayer, and blind to your need for God. Tell yourself that grace is not permission to be lazy, but power to be holy. Grace is not God lowering the standard because you cannot reach it. Grace is God giving you a new heart that longs to obey. Too many speak of grace as though it were an excuse for indifference, as though forgiveness were meant to produce apathy. But grace trains you. It disciplines you. It teaches you to say no to ungodliness and yes to righteousness. If your understanding of grace has made you comfortable with sin, then you have not understood grace at all. Tell yourself this every day, because your flesh will constantly seek to twist mercy into a license. Grace cost blood, Grace cost agony. Grace is not cheap, and it was never meant to leave you unchanged. Tell yourself that obedience matters, even when no one is watching. Especially when no one is watching. You do not live before an audience of people. You live before the face of God. The measure of your character is not what you display in public, but what you pursue in secret. What you watch when you are alone. What you think when no one corrects you. What you do when disobedience seems convenient and obedience seems costly. Tell yourself that every choice matters. Every thought matters. Every hidden act is seen. This is not meant to make you paranoid, but reverent. There is a holy fear that produces wisdom. There is an awareness of God that guards your heart. Tell yourself this every day, because the temptation to compartmentalize your faith is relentless. Tell yourself that suffering is not evidence of God's absence, but often the instrument of His purpose. You will be tempted to believe that a good God would never allow pain, disappointment, or delay. But the truth is that some of the deepest work God does in a person is accomplished in the furnace, not the meadow. Trials expose what comfort hides. Pressure reveals what ease conceals. You want patience, but you resent waiting. You want humility, but you despise being humbled. You want faith, but you recoil at the testing of it. Tell yourself that God is not cruel, and He is not careless. He is wise, and His wisdom is often beyond your immediate understanding. Tell yourself this every day, because when suffering comes, and it will, your interpretation of it will determine whether you grow bitter or grow holy. Tell yourself that your feelings are real, but they are not reliable. Emotions are powerful, but they are terrible masters. They fluctuate. They deceive. They exaggerate. If you allow your feelings to dictate your beliefs, you will live in constant instability. There will be days when you feel strong and days when you feel abandoned. Days when obedience feels joyful and days when it feels unbearable. Do not interpret truth through the lens of emotion. Interpret emotion through the lens of truth. Tell your soul what is true, even when it protests. Especially when it protests. Tell yourself this every day, because if you do not, you will confuse sincerity with truth and passion with righteousness. Tell yourself that time is short and eternity is long. You are not immortal. Your life is a vapor. You make plans as though you will live forever. But the truth is that your days are numbered. This is not morbid. It is clarifying. When you remember that your time is limited, you begin to ask better questions. Not merely what is enjoyable, but what is meaningful. Not merely what is urgent, but what is eternal. You begin to weigh your words, your investments, your pursuits. Tell yourself this every day, because distraction is one of the enemy's most effective tools. If he cannot make you wicked, he will make you busy. Tell yourself that love is not sentiment, but sacrifice. The world will tell you that love is primarily a feeling, something you fall into and fall out of, something that serves you. But real love costs. It denies self. It endures. It acts for the good of others, even when there is no immediate return. If your version of love never requires you to die to yourself, then it is not love, it is preference. Tell yourself this every day, because you will be tempted to measure relationships by how they make you feel, rather than how faithfully you are called to love. Tell yourself that hope is not found in circumstances improving, but in God remaining faithful. If your hope rises and falls with your situation, then you do not have hope, you have optimism. And optimism is fragile. Hope is rooted in character, not conditions. God does not change. He does not forget. He does not fail. Tell yourself this every day, because despair often comes not from pain itself, but from believing that pain is all there is. You must understand that these are not mere affirmations designed to boost your self-esteem. They are confrontations. They are reminders that cut against your natural inclinations. Your heart does not drift toward truth. It drifts toward comfort. It drifts toward self-exaltation. That is why you must speak with authority to your own soul. You must take responsibility for what you believe, what you love, and what you pursue. There will be days when you do not want to hear these things. Days when you would rather be soothed than sanctified. Days when you prefer excuses to repentance. On those days, you must speak even louder. You must not negotiate with your flesh. You must not wait until you feel like obeying. Obedience often precedes understanding. Faith often walks before sight. You will fail. Do not be surprised by this, but do not make peace with it either. There is a difference between humility and resignation. Humility says, I cannot do this on my own. Resignation says, I will not try. Tell yourself that perseverance matters. That repentance is not a one-time event, but a lifestyle. That getting up again is not hypocrisy, but evidence of life. Do not waste your life chasing applause that fades. Do not measure success by numbers, recognition, or comfort. Measure it by faithfulness. At the end, you will not regret obedience. You will not regret holiness. You will regret compromise. You will regret distractions that consumed your energy, but produced nothing of eternal value. Each morning is a mercy. Each breath is undeserved. Let that reality produce gratitude, not entitlement. Let it produce diligence, not laziness. You have been given this day not to indulge yourself, but to steward it. Speak these truths to yourself when you wake, and when you are weary, when you feel strong, and when you feel exposed, when obedience seems costly, and when sin seems attractive. Do not wait for a dramatic moment to take your life seriously. Faithfulness is built in the ordinary, in repeated choices that no one applauds. The quiet discipline of prayer. The unseen battle against temptation. the consistent pursuit of truth. This is where transformation happens. You are not your own. You were created for something greater than comfort, greater than success, as the world defines it. You were created to know God, to honor Him, to reflect His character in a broken world. Tell yourself this every day, until it shapes the way you think, the way you speak, the way you live. And when you grow tired of telling yourself these things, remember that your wariness does not invalidate the truth. Keep speaking. Keep reminding. Keep returning. Because the soul that is daily instructed in truth is not easily deceived, not easily shaken, not easily destroyed. You must understand that if you do not intentionally speak truth to your own soul, something else will. Silence is never neutral. The human heart does not remain empty, and it does not drift toward light. Left alone, it bends inward. It curves toward self-protection, self-promotion, and self-justification. Pride does not announce itself, it whispers. Comfort does not demand allegiance, it seduces. Self-deception does not feel like a lie. It feels reasonable. And that is why daily truth is not optional. It is survival. Every morning you wake up with a heart already inclined to believe what is convenient rather than what is true. You feel it immediately. You evaluate your day based on how you feel, not on what is right. You assess your worth by productivity, affirmation, or comparison. You excuse sharp words, lazy thoughts, and hidden compromises because you are tired, stressed, or misunderstood. And all of this happens before you have consciously chosen anything. This is why you cannot afford to be passive. You must take authority over your own inner life. You must interrupt the natural drift and confront it with truth that does not originate from you. Your feelings are powerful, but they are not trustworthy guides. They respond to sleep, hormones, success, failure, praise, rejection. One day you feel close to God, the next you feel distant, and you assume something has changed in Him. One day obedience feels light, the next it feels heavy, and you begin to question whether it is worth it. If transformation depended on feelings, no one would ever grow. Feelings follow what you feed them. They submit to what you believe. And so, if you allow your emotions to sit on the throne, truth will be exiled whenever it becomes inconvenient. Lasting transformation does not come from telling yourself how valuable you are, while ignoring how deeply flawed you remain. It does not come from repeating affirmations that never confront sin. It does not come from surrounding yourself with voices that soothe but never challenge. Transformation begins when you are willing to be honest before God about who you are and who you are not. It begins when truth is allowed to wound before it heals. Pride hates exposure, but humility cannot exist without it. God-centered truth humbles you because it reorders reality. It reminds you that you are not the measure of all things. Your preferences are not ultimate. Your opinions are not final. Your comfort is not sacred. When truth takes center stage, you are dethroned. And this is where real freedom begins, though it will not feel like freedom at first. It feels like loss of control, loss of entitlement, loss of the illusion that you are basically fine. But what you lose in self-rule, you gain in clarity. Truth exposes sin not to shame you into paralysis, but to rescue you from deception. Sin thrives in darkness and silence. It grows when it is unnamed and unchallenged. You do not overcome what you refuse to acknowledge. When you daily confront yourself with truth, you stop negotiating with behaviors that are slowly hollowing you out. You stop calling disobedience a struggle and start calling it what it is. And in that moment, repentance becomes possible, not as a performance, but as a turning. There is a subtle danger in confusing sincerity with faithfulness. You can be deeply sincere and deeply wrong. You can feel passionate and still be disobedient. Truth is not validated by intensity of emotion, but by alignment with God's character and will. This is why confronting yourself daily is uncomfortable. It dismantles false peace. It disrupts the stories you tell yourself to avoid change. It refuses to let you remain the hero of every narrative. Obedience is not the byproduct of inspiration. It is the fruit of conviction. You do not wake up transformed because you felt motivated yesterday. You are transformed because you consistently chose truth when it opposed your instincts. Obedience often feels like resistance before it feels like joy. It is choosing what is right while everything in you argues for what is easy. And the call to obedience does not soften with time. It sharpens. The more truth you know, the more responsible you become. Daily confrontation with truth reminds you that grace is not tolerance. Grace is not God pretending that sin does not matter. Grace is God providing what is necessary for change. It empowers obedience. It does not excuse rebellion. If your understanding of grace has made you casual about holiness, then it has been reshaped by comfort rather than truth. Grace teaches you to say no, not just to feel forgiven. Self-deception often wears the disguise of balance. You tell yourself that you are doing fine, that things could be worse, that everyone struggles. And while these statements may be factually true, they can be spiritually lethal if they keep you from repentance. Comparing yourself to others is a way to avoid comparing yourself to truth. And truth does not grade on a curve. You must confront yourself because no one else can do it for you. Others can warn you, teach you, encourage you. But the daily work of belief happens in solitude. It happens in the quiet decisions, the internal dialogues, the moments where no one is watching and no one applauds. This is where pride is either fed or starved. This is where comfort is either questioned or enthroned. God-centered truth redefines success. It tells you that faithfulness matters more than outcomes. That obedience is not validated by immediate results. That unseen integrity outweighs visible achievement. Without this truth, you will slowly trade conviction for convenience. You will adjust your standards to fit your lifestyle, rather than adjust your lifestyle to fit truth. The heart prefers vague spirituality over specific obedience. It enjoys general ideas about goodness, while resisting concrete commands. Daily confrontation forces specificity. It asks hard questions. It does not allow you to hide behind intention while neglecting action. It presses you to align belief with behavior, confession with conduct. Transformation is slow because pride is patient. Comfort is persistent. Self-deception is creative. They do not disappear with one moment of clarity. They must be confronted again and again, not because truth changes, but because you forget. You forget who God is. You forget who you are. You forget what matters. And so, truth must be repeated until it becomes instinct, rather than interruption. There will be days when confronting yourself feels harsh. Days when you want relief instead of refinement. Days when you wish truth would whisper instead of command. But truth spoken in love is still truth. And love that refuses to confront is not love at all. What feels severe in the moment often proves merciful in the long run. If you do not preach truth to your own soul, you will inevitably listen to the loudest voice, the most convenient narrative, the path of least resistance. And over time, that path reshapes you. Not dramatically, not suddenly, but subtly, until one day you realize that what once troubled you no longer does, and what once mattered has lost its weight. Daily confrontation is not about perfection. It is about direction. It is about refusing to drift without awareness. It is about choosing to live examined rather than anesthetized. Truth does not promise ease, but it does promise clarity. And clarity, though costly, is a mercy. When truth humbles you, it does not leave you hopeless. It places your confidence where it belongs. Not in your consistency, but in God's faithfulness. Not in your strength, but in His sufficiency. And from that place, obedience becomes possible, not as a burden you carry alone, but as a response to grace that refuses to leave you unchanged.